If you grew up in the 90s, I'm sure you heard of the movie G.I. Jane with Demi Moore. If not, it's a fictional story about the first woman named Lieutenant Jordan O'Neill, played by Demi, who undergoes special ops training in the U.S. Navy. It came out back in 97, and I think it's a really good movie. If you enjoy military conspiracy, drama, and rooting for the underdog, I really think you would enjoy this film. Personally, for me, after watching G.I. Jane, I was left feeling more inspired and intrigued about life in the military. Of course, I was already aware of the military because 3 of my uncles served, one in the Navy, one in the Marines, and another in the Army. But as a young female, I never felt any strong connection or desire to learn more about the armed forces. At the time, to me, the military equaled men in uniforms fighting in battle. But after watching G.I. Jane and actually seeing a woman in uniform, it sparked a little something inside of me, and it shined a new light of possibility and relatability to the military for me. Demi's character, Lieutenant O'Neill, displayed a woman I felt I wanted to become. Strong yet feminine, brave and committed to succeed despite the hardships and obstacles placed in front of her. And at a pinnacle point in the movie, when she was threatened with the possibility of failure, she never compromised her integrity. She simply wanted to prove herself as a soldier. And as crazy as it may sound, I could see myself possibly becoming those things too in the military. So in 1999, a few months before my high school graduation, I decided to enlist. And although ultimately the military taught me many things, such as discipline, teamwork, adaptability, respect, service, and accountability, my experience in boot camp showed me that I struggled with one of the most important core values in the armed forces: integrity, doing the right thing even when no one is looking. Just like in the movie G.I. Jane, I had a decision to make when I was threatened with the possibility of failure. Do I fail but keep my integrity? Or do I decide to lie and compromise my integrity? Hi, everyone. Welcome to the F.A.I.L.Podcast, where I share my own personal stories of how I have learned to not only accept and embrace my life fails, but also how I have grown because of them. I'm your host, Melody, and I am so happy to have you here. I hope you are doing well and have been enjoying the podcast so far. I'm still a newbie in this space, and although it has been challenging at times, sharing my personal stories with you has been an amazing creative outlet for me. So I want to thank you for continuing on this journey with me, and let's jump right into it. Back in the late 90s, like other graduating high school seniors, I was at a bit of a crossroads about what would be my next step into adulthood. I didn't have a strong desire to go to college right away, nor did I know what I wanted to study, but I knew I needed to do something with my life. And since the military had become more and more of a definite possibility for me, I made the decision to join the Air Force Reserves. I was informed by my recruiter that I would have to go to boot camp for 6 weeks at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas. While there, I would go through formal educational training, as well as a variety of physical challenges, which concluded with a required fitness test. This fitness test for females consisted of completing 14 push-ups and 38 sit-ups in 2 minutes and a 2-mile run in 21 minutes or less. I knew I wasn't in the best shape at the time, but I had a few months before boot camp, so I started training a bit. Nothing too rigorous or even structured. I would just work on doing full-out push-ups and sit-ups, and I would do some light jogging on the treadmill. I figured with that training, my youth, and the additional training I would get during boot camp would be enough to help me pass the fitness test. So walking into boot camp, I knew I wasn't 100% physically ready, but I was confident I would become ready. The day finally came for me to leave for boot camp, and I was really nervous about leaving home for the first time. but I was anxious to start this new journey. I was 18. This was my first time on an airplane, so I was just wide-eyed, a little scared, but excited. But once we landed at the base, got signed in, and all of us recruits were standing at attention, you could really feel the tension in the room. This was serious. This wasn't a movie. We were really about to start training to become soldiers. If I could describe those first couple of weeks of boot camp, I would say it was a shock to my system, and it was overwhelming and extremely stressful. I kept thinking to myself, what the heck did I sign up for? I had so many moments where I really wanted to quit, but I didn't want to go home a failure. So I pushed through. And by the end of our third week, I remember I felt a bit more settled into the whole process. All of the classroom trainings had been going pretty well, but the one thing I was constantly struggling with was the 2-mile run. I was never really a runner before, and I don't think I realized how tough this 2-mile run would be for me. I was just having such a hard time catching my breath, and I really felt like my lungs were going to explode from my chest. Now, a couple of things I want to point out about this run was that, one, it required us to run around this outdoor track 8 full laps in 21 minutes or less. And two, our time was recorded based on an honor system, which meant our drill instructors didn't time us. We were just given the responsibility to time ourselves and report our results. For whatever reason you didn't pass any parts of your fitness test, you would have to stay an extra week or two until you pass. Fortunately, we were allowed to take our fitness test multiple times, but I still began to worry. During all of my practice tests, I was only getting up to the 7th lap in the 21 minutes as opposed to the 8 required laps. In my head, there was absolutely no way I was going to be staying any additional time in boot camp. And after taking and failing the run part of my final fitness test 2 different times, I really began to panic. We were in our final weeks and I knew I was running out of time. I don't think I set out this fateful day to do this, but the third time I took my fitness test and completed that 7th lap and under that 21-minute mark, I made the decision to stop and not complete that last lap, but recorded my time as a completed 2-mile run. Basically, I lied just so I could be done with that fitness test. Afterwards, I really thought I would just be relieved, but almost immediately I felt anything but relief. I was scared someone would run up to me and say, "Gotcha, I know you didn't finish that 8th lap." Of course, no one did that, but I knew it. And my inner consciousness was the loudest voice of all screaming at me. And I felt so ashamed of myself, but I just couldn't go back and admit I had lied. So I didn't. I didn't say anything. I kept this secret to myself. And I had no peace about it. No peace once I finally graduated boot camp, nor did I have any peace during my entire 8-year enlistment. Because I lied about finishing my fitness test, I knew deep down I didn't deserve to be there. I never felt like I truly earned the stripes that were on my arms. I compromised my own integrity that final week of boot camp, and it affected how I felt during my entire military experience. What was supposed to be such an inspiring and empowering journey for me ended up being one of my biggest regrets and ultimate failure in my life. And I had no one to blame but myself. Although for many, many years, I have felt a lot of shame around what I did, looking back at it now, I can give myself some grace and see how tired and frustrated and panicked I had become. And I felt that that was my only option at the time. If I could go back, no, I don't think I would have opted to stay in boot camp any longer. Instead, I should have been honest and humbly dropped out of my training and returned home. Those fitness requirements were put in place for a reason, And if I couldn't complete them, that meant by military standards, I wasn't fit to be a soldier. And I should have honored and respected that. Which brought me to another realization. I didn't go into the military with the right intentions. I didn't go with the mindset I was going to serve my country. I went to serve my own fragile ego. And I believe that's why it ended with me compromising my own integrity instead of just accepting my failure. Had I returned home without completing boot camp, yes, I would have been embarrassed and disappointed with myself, but at least my integrity would still have been intact. And that is a truth I would have never regretted. That experience really taught me that it's okay to fail in order to keep your integrity. And my integrity is priceless. Everyone, that's it for me today. I really hope you enjoyed this week's show. Please drop down in the comments section to leave a review and a rating. Make sure to follow the F.A.I.L. podcast wherever you are listening right now. Next episode of the show will be Monday, October 27th. Once again, I'm your host, Melody, and I will catch up with you next time.